Hello friends, welcome back on the series of lectures on automobile transmission and mechanism. I am Yash Modi from LJ Polytechnic Automobile Engineering Department. In this video, we are going to see one of the most commonly used type of manual clutch in modern vehicle, that is diaphragm spring type clutch. Now, in this video, we are going to see the components, assembly, disassembly and working of this clutch. Now first, let us talk about the list of components. First is obviously the flywheel. Next is clutch plate, also known as friction plate. Next is pressure plate along with diaphragm spring. Next, release bearing, fork lever and the clutch shaft. Now let us see a little bit deeper details about these components. First, the flywheel. Now flywheel on the left side is connected with the crankshaft and is driven by the torque developed by engine. On this side, on this face will be the clutch plate attached to it. Next is clutch plate, also known as friction plate. Right? Here you can see this lining. This lining is made of friction material. Sometimes it is asbestos or otherwise it is cork or leather. Here on this spring, there is a spring that is called torsional spring provided for dynamic stability. The friction lining material is attached using rivets and in between is embedded cushioning springs or pads. And also there is internal splines created here so that it can align on the clutch shaft. Next is the assembly of pressure plate along with diaphragm spring. Here you can see this finger-like construction is the diaphragm plate, and here this lining or this plate is called pressure plate. This diaphragm spring actuates the plate and it creates pressure on the clutch plate. Next is release bearing. So release bearing is used to actuate the diaphragm spring. It pushes on the diaphragm spring so that it can apply the pressure on the clutch plate. Next is fork lever. The fork lever is attached to the clutch pedal using a set of mechanisms. And finally, the clutch shaft. These are the main splines created here so that it can attach itself on the clutch shaft. Right? Now, let us see the assembly of this clutch. First, on the flywheel, on this surface will be the friction material of the clutch plate, also known as friction plate. Alright, next will be the pressure plate and diaphragm spring assembly. Alright, we will tighten the torque. This must be tightened at the torque provided by specified by the manufacturer. On this, the release bearing, the clutch shaft, and then will come the fork lever. So this is the assembly of diaphragm spring type clutch. Now we will also disassemble this and put this in its original position, and then we'll see the working of the clutch. This is the release bearing. We will untighten the bolts. Here in this type of clutch, sometimes there are 6 bolts and sometimes there are 8 bolts according to the manufacturer. The clutch lining material also has torsional springs, as I said earlier. It is provided for dynamic stability. Here you can see this. There are a number of springs. So this is the disassembly of the clutch. Now we will see the working of the clutch. First let us see the components again. This is the clutch shaft. These splines will attach to the clutch plate inside this clutch. Next is fork lever. Fork lever is attached to the foot pedal of this clutch. Next is diaphragm spring. with pressure plate attached to the flywheel. Now let us see the working. When I push the pedal, the foot pedal then engages the fork lever which pushes on the release bearing. This release bearing further pushes the diaphragm spring, and this diaphragm spring will actuate the pressure plate, resulting in a reduction of pressure to the friction plate, and thus the clutch is disengaged. In this scenario, the torque developed by the engine is not transmitted towards the gearbox. And when I release the foot pedal, this due to the spring force, all of the components will again regain its position. So this is the working, and this is called the engagement of clutch. Alright guys, this is from my side, and stay tuned for further videos.